actually extra 2 minutes. How are we doing? Good. How are we doing? Good. There we go. I heard great too, even better. All right, I am ecstatic, super excited to have the opportunity to give the lecture this morning. Broadly, I want to talk about politics. Before I jump in, I want to sort of lay out just one sort of point that I think will frame a lot of our conversation, but maybe is helpful just to remind. We have an extremely diverse skill set at the camp this summer for people sort of just getting into and experiencing debating for the first time, which is amazing. And people who have debated for a while, who are extremely competitively successful, who sort of heard lectures like this before. So, what that means is that you're going to hear some stuff that might not be earth-shattering to you. You might be like, Thur, I got it. Stick with me, follow along. It's a great chance to sort of refresh yourself on things that maybe you already know, but maybe even more than that, I'm going to then take those basic concepts and try and broaden them, to make them a little bit more complex, to apply it to your debating, to offer you some pro tips, if you will, from my experience in debate. And I think it will be really, really enriching for everyone, but you got to give me a quick second to sort of set the foundation so that everyone is able to learn sort of equally. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Feasible enough? All right, I love it. If you do not know me, my name is Thur. I debated for Michigan State University from 2012 to 2016. I then coached at Thumper South High School. I guess I still sort of did for a few years after that. In Glenview, Illinois. I had to live through a Cubs World Series, which as a Brewers fan was one of the most painful things in my life. Do we have any Cub fans? Nice. We're not many. Any White Sox fans?
Woo!
Some? Any Brewer fans?
Woo!
Woo! I love it. Okay. Man, even better. And then I spent the last 2 years back in Michigan State University. I couldn't get away from the dairy store. And I got my master's in public policy. And what a master's in public policy is a combination of political science and economics. So what I want to do is to sort of impart on you some of those concepts of political science, those ideas from what I've been studying academically into debate to make you sort of the best politics debaters that are possible. All right, I have 3 goals for the discussion. I've included 2 pictures of myself from my very first year of debate. I sort of gave you a hint. Can anyone guess what year my first year of debate would have been? Yeah?
Sophomore year high school.
Oh, okay, this is actually a good clarification. So technically, this is not my first year of debate. The top photo is, which is cut off a little bit on this one, you can see it on that one. The bottom one is my sophomore year. So sophomore year was my second year of debate. What year, calendar-wise, for you guys? Yes?
2008.
Yeah, nice, very good. Where were you all in 2008? Kindergarten? Nice. I love it. All of you were born after 9/11, right? Does anyone not know what 9/11 was?
I was before.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyways, the reason why I include this, hold on, bring it back. The reason why I include this is partially to make fun of myself. It's like a nice little picture of Thur. It's partially to be like, do you see how we used to debate on these things of tubs with paper files, et cetera, et cetera. You used to carry them around room to room. Anyways, but it's also because, and if you've heard me after my live, you know this, I'm obsessed with goal setting. And I'm really, really big on the growth mindset. I think it's important to know where you come from where you're going. And I have 3 goals for this conversation that will inform the structure of the lecture. So one is I want part 1 to sort of give you a comprehensive overview of how politics works, how government works, how the Congress operates. And I know that some of you will have had this experience in AP Gov classes or social studies classes or other instances. Hopefully that just makes it super quick and you can answer all the questions for me. But for those that don't, I think it's really important to understand the context and the lay of the land, if you will, to get a better perspective on what the politics DA is saying. Second, I want to outline various versions of the politics disadvantage. The debt ceiling disadvantage you all have practiced or heard about or experienced is one tiny little subset of the entire world of politics. There are debaters, myself included, who basically made their career on different versions of the politics DA. And I want to make sure that this discussion provides a survey of where all of that touches so that you're prepared, if you are a 2A, to respond to a litany of different possible arguments. And if you're a 2A, I want you to have a variety of options for your debating. The very last piece of this, and if you're like, all right, I kind of already know what it go, kind of heard of the politics TA, where I think you will have the most added value, is I want to take politics debating from sort of basic to advanced and offer some pro tips, if you will, for each component of the dissat in terms of uniqueness, length, internal link impact, that can sort of take your debating from like, meh, that was fine, to like, uh-oh, we got some issues going on. All right. So let's start with that very, very first component, which is the political process, the discussion of how the world sort of operates. Affirmatives, in theory, could be any one of the three branches of government, right? They could be the executive branch, they could be the Department of State sort of ending the arms sale, just not pursuing it, depending on what you think produce means. They could be the courts, sort of imposing a new standard for arms sales that narrows them, or, and maybe most likely in a lot of cases, they could be a congressional action. That's what we're going to focus on, just for brevity's sake, and because I think the other lectures could be standalone things to truly, truly understand the texture and nuance of how government operates. So, let's start with the Senate. It has 100 senators, 2 from each state. Can anyone name their 2 senators? The good thing for you is I don't know what state you're from, so you can just name 2 senators from the same state. And I'd be like, wow, so smart. Okay, who are you going from? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, does anyone know what state, remind me what your name is? Does anyone know what state Daniel's from? Texas. Don't mess with Texas. All right, perfect. Let's do another one. Yeah, go ahead. Ooh, does anyone know what state? What's your name again? Does anyone know Daniel? Was it just Daniel? Daniel. Does anyone know what state Daniel's from? Illinois. Great state. Cubs fan? Great. We accept non-partial. You are Switzerland. All right, one more. Yeah.
Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
Okay. Does anyone know a state there? Great state of New York. What's interesting about Chuck Schumer when we talk about the Senate? Right. Raise your hands. Why is Chuck Schumer important?
He's the minority leader.
Yeah. Right. And does anyone know what that means? That he's the minority leader? Who's he in charge of? Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit in a second how politics sort of play out in practice. But for now, you can know that there are leaders of the party that are sort of more tenured, more experienced, more influential, and they're sort of in charge of keeping their ranks in order. All right, so we got the Senate. It's made up of 100 senators, 2 from each state. This beautiful visual, which I shamelessly stole from the internet, is composed of 53 Republicans, 45 Democrats, and 2 independents. Okay? Let's see how much we know about our political system. Can anyone name the 2 independents? Can anyone name one of the independents that is in the Senate? Yeah. Okay, from where?
Vermont.
Great state of Vermont. Can anyone name, this one's a little bit tougher. Can anyone name the other independent?
I think it's like Angus or something.
That is his first name, Angus.
Maine.
He's from Maine as well.
Angus King.
Yes, perfect. Angus King. While these 2 are independent, they generally caucus. Caucus means like you vote with, you are associated with the Democratic Party. So in some ways, for ease, as you're thinking about what vote counts look like, when you're thinking about what the debt ceiling vote might sort of be structured by, you can consider that the Senate is about 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. Okay? We're going to talk about sort of how bills become law, the political process of these things, as a jumping off point for where fights can emerge and where the politics TA sort of gets its specificity. But for now, all I really need you to know is the Senate is controlled by Republicans. Okay? Senate is controlled by Republicans. Just as like an interesting FYI, some of you all might already know these things, but there's some important characteristics about the Senate that I want to highlight. First and foremost is it's more formal, deliberative, and prestigious. Formal, deliberative, and prestigious, so like fancy, if you will, than the House. And because of its smaller size, it has something that's called the filibuster. Debate is allowed, and it has something called the filibuster. Does anyone know what the filibuster is without filibustering my question? Go ahead.
It's like taking up a long time on the debate stall.
Yeah, right? So imagine you raise your hand, and maybe some of you have done this in your classes. I may or may not have as a high schooler. And you're like, Professor Thur, tell us about the Brewers. Don't you think the Brewers have a great prospect this season? Tell me about their starting pitching. And then you just start talking about other stuff, right? It gets so extreme in the Senate, people have gone up and read green eggs and ham on the floor of Congress. And the point of it is to prevent a vote from occurring because that senator knows that in this split, there are enough Republicans, in this instance, but in other Congresses, enough Democrats, to vote for and approve that bill. The way to avoid the filibuster is through a procedural rule. Does anyone know what it's called? It's sort of related to if you have a really bad cut, you have to stop it. Yeah, and for that cloture, you need to have 60 votes, 3/5 of the Senate, say, all right, time to move on. It doesn't automatically approve the bill, but to invoke cloture basically caps the amount of future debate that can occur such that a vote will be possible. The thing to know about the filibuster and the reason why it's sort of important as we talk about the politics TA is it comes up with uniqueness debates, right? It's relevant for the question of how many votes does the negative need to prove exist in order for the bill to get done. All right? And in some cases, that's just 51. It's just a majority, right? Or it's just 50, which we'll talk about in a second. But in other instances, you have to take the filibuster into account, and if the filibuster is in play, you need how many votes for the thing to get passed? Perfect, you got it. Two other notes about the Senate, one serious, one kind of funny and interesting. The presiding officer, the person in charge, is the vice president. Okay, so Mike Pence. The reason why that's important sort of comes up with uniqueness debate considerations again. If there is a 50-50 tie, okay, so say not even three of, both the independents go to the Democratic side, 3 of the Republicans go to the Democratic side, and it's we don't know which way to vote. The vice president gets the tie-breaking vote, okay? And in those cases, you would only need 50 votes in the Senate for a bill to get done, right? 50 votes plus the one tiebreaker of the vice president. It has happened in the Trump administration. Okay, last fun fact. This one's more just interesting. So in debates, there is a custom. Remember, the Senate's kind of formal, and they focus on procedure, and it's prestigious. In debates, you only refer to other members of the Senate, other senators, by the third person. So you don't say hey you. And they generally skip people's names. So if you were talking to your parents and you're today, if you're a reasonable normal person, you're yeah, this guy, Tyler, lectured about politics. Instead, if you were in the Senate, you would be my distinguished friend from Wisconsin spoke about the political process. It's really not important for the politics TA, but I thought that was fascinating. I don't know. All right, so that's the Senate. That's the Senate. Some new stuff in there for people, even if you move by cat AP go, sort of, kind of. Are we alive? Do we have the caffeine from Sparty's coursing through our veins? No? Oh. Are we alive on life and the excitement of politics?
Yes.
Yes! Yes! Okay. House. Okay. House. It's made up of 435 voting members. The Senate is sort of this 2 members from each state. The House changes, right? And if you heard about the census, you've heard about gerrymandering, this is sort of where those considerations come to play. Well, it is set in law that there will be 435 members and 6 non-voting members. That the number of representatives from states change. So in every year number 0, right, so 2020, there's a census, there's a count of all of the people. And then they reset up the districts to ensure that there is equal representation in terms of population. So in the year with the 2 asterisks, so 2022, is the first time there are House elections reflecting the 90 census. Okay? In addition to the voting members, there's 6 non-voting members that represent places like Washington, D.C., sorry, you don't have any votes, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and the Virgin Islands. This figure is a little bit dated. So there still are 235 Democrats. That is true. However, the 200 Republicans is a smaller figure now. There's only 197. There are 2 vacancies, meaning like 2 people are gone right now. One was because of a disputed election. One was because a representative from North Carolina died. But then there's one other person who is no longer included in this total. So in truth, it's 235 to 197 to 1 independent. Here's like the test, like if you've been following the news. Does anyone know who that 1 independent is? They announced it on the 4th of July to declare their independence. So yeah, yes? Yeah. Yeah, right? From Michigan, I think the 3rd congressional district. It's like one that's like Battle Creek, Grand Rapids. Yeah. So here, who has the majority? The Dems. Yeah, right? It creates an interesting dynamic. There is split control of the legislative branch, right? So the 2 years before, so like Trump's elected in 2016 up until 2018, who controls the presidency, Republicans or Democrats? Who controls the Senate, Republicans or Democrats? Who controls the House, Republicans or Democrats? Republicans back in that period. And who can, I mean, the Supreme Court is apolitical and nonpartisan, but who controls the Supreme Court? Conservatives, Republicans, right? So you have a period of unified government, which is like, it should be the easiest to ever pass stuff. Things should just be like flying through. They didn't totally work out. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we consider this idea of political capital. But in that period, it should have been perfect. With divided government, would you expect more or less legislation to get through Congress? Significantly less, right? Because all of these individuals in the House have the majorities to create democratically oriented bills, right? Extend the DREAM Act, extend voting rights for convicted felons, do a whole bunch of stuff for equal pay, et cetera, et cetera. Is that going to pass here? No, it might not even come to the floor because, as we'll talk about in a second, Mitch McConnell, who's the majority leader in the Senate, leader of the Republicans in the Senate, can choose whether or not to bring a vote to the floor. So as you're thinking about politics, TAs, you need to think about where there exists overlap between the Republican and Democratic parties such that legislation can sort of thread the needle between a conservative Senate that has sort of been successful supporting Trump and a Democratic House that was primarily elected on a mandate to constrain the president's authority. Okay? It creates really, really interesting dynamics for where things are going. The only thing I want to note, like as a random aside for the House, is it's super fast changing. Term limits are 2 years. That's it. And then there's a full re-election of the House. Okay, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of politicking, there's a lot of concern for how things look and how things are perceived, and that can influence some of the dynamics for the policies of the Senate. Make sense? Make sense? Yeah. I'm making sure you're still alive. Like, whoo. Okay. All right. Next piece. You're gonna be super overwhelmed. Just look at it for a second. Take a deep breath. Okay. Love it. The political process. It's chaos, right? Did any of you ever play like the game of life? Does it kind of look like that, sort of, where it's like, you go this way, whatever, whatever? Okay. I am not going to talk through this. I'm not going to. There's just too much, right? What I want you to take away from this is that there are many steps along the way between Tyler Thur submits a bill to his representative saying everyone should get puppies, and the realization of me having a cute little corgi in my hands. Okay? There are lots of steps. This PowerPoint will be uploaded And I would encourage you to look through this when you have a little bit of free time, because it is the most comprehensive and best source I could find that sort of walks through the political process. Okay? Slightly less overwhelming, I call it diet process. What's it called? You all will help me here because it's so diet Schoolhouse Rock, if you will. Schoolhouse Rock, did you see that? Little Bell, yeah. All right. The lighter version of it, the shorter process, I will talk through. And again, this will be uploaded. So if you don't write down the notes perfectly, that's totally okay. All right. In general, the following process can describe how a bill becomes a law. In general, there are 6 pieces. 6 pieces. I will say those 6 pieces really quick and then talk through them. Part 1, bill is introduced. Part 1, bill is introduced. It's not earth-shattering. It's like, hey, we have a bill. We have an idea. Step 2, the committee process. The committee process. And it's way more important than you think. Step 3 is floor action, including the vote. Step 4 is, you say like, what's next? And the reason why I say that is because if the House and Senate pass the same bill, it just goes to the president. And if they pass different ones, it goes to the conference committee. So like step 4 is like figuring out what to do next, kind of. Step 5 is the role for the president. Again, either immediately if it's the same bill or after the conference committee if it's a different bill. And then the last piece of it is the Congress's reaction to the president, which sometimes is nothing and sometimes is very significant. Okay, this is the last like Gov style thing I promise I'm doing. Okay, but it is important. It is important. So stick with me for this, and then we'll get a little bit more into the weeds on the debate side. All right, the law is introduced. It can occur either in the House or the Senate with some narrow exceptions. If the bill is about appropriation, like money, it has to start in the House. But remember, any bill to be passed has to go through the House and the Senate. It's not like a choose your own adventure style thing. That would be really nice, right? Or it would be really bad, I don't know. Right now it would be very contradictory. Step 2, bills go to committee. Bills go to committee. And they shortly realize that while many bills are introduced, while many bills are proposed, very, very few ever become law. There are a variety of committees. There is Armed Services Committee, there's an Oversight Committee in the House, there is a Science and Technology Committee, so on and so forth. And once a bill has been sent to its committee, the primary role of the committee is to like figure out what's going on with the bill and make a recommendation to the rest of the Senate or the House. There are committees in both the House and the Senate. So whether a bill starts in the Senate or the House, after it's introduced, it goes to committees. It's just that it goes to a different committee. Examples of things that can be done to learn more about a bill. 1, they can request public comments. So they could be like, Tyler Thur, we are considering regulating Taco Bell to protect consumers. Whatnot. We would like your expertise as the world's foremost Taco Bell consumer to testify about how you feel about proposed regulations to Taco Bell. Okay, or more seriously, they could be like, hey, we have a new bill about dealing with gerrymandering or messing with political boundaries. We want to bring in some political scientists that have studied how votes are manipulated in order to understand this stuff. They can also ask agencies, right? So within the executive branch, agencies, the people who carry out the laws, the Environmental Protection Agency, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, so on and so forth. They can ask them to come and comment as well. And the whole point is to be like, let's get a sense of whether or not this bill is good or bad policy and what we think about it. All right. In addition to that, committees can learn about the bill by holding hearings, which is sort of the same idea, or sending that bill to subcommittees, right? So bill has been introduced top level in the House or Senate. They have now sent it to committee. They can send it even further into subcommittee, right? That can be a really good thing because you can learn more about the legislation. You can figure out sort of, is this valuable? Is this what we want? Or it can be a really, really bad thing because in many instances, one exception in the House is something called discharge petitions. It can just kill the bill. It can just be like, we're leaving this bill in committee, nothing is coming. After that discussion that occurs in the committee, there's a vote among the full committee, which is a collection of members of each party, and a recommendation after a markup session. A markup session is where they make recommendations, they make amendments. And following this, the committee can either be like, it's good to go, we approve of it, put it on the floor, or they can be like, put it on the floor with these amendments to change it. I know this seems pedantic and detail-oriented. It sort of is, partially because you should know this stuff in general. But also because you are going to see a lot of references in uniqueness evidence to bills being passed out of committee, or bills being referred to committee. Generally, negative teams will frame that as like, this will for sure pass, it passed committee. The committee is like the lowest barrier you can get, and you need to be sort of questioning that evidence and pushing back on whether or not it is truly a warrant for the reason why the bill will pass. All right, so if you're following along on the chart, you're basically through on to like the bottom chart in yellow, where it says, committee report and bill is put on House calendar. The third chunk of the legislative process is floor action. So putting it on calendar just means that it's scheduled. It's like we are going to take action. This is another barrier where bills can get killed. Or if you're thinking about the affirmative, which is a must-pass piece of legislation that the act has to defend, making its way through the system, this is another measure that leaders have to take that could hurt their political capital and could hurt their influence. Okay? In the House, two people decide what will reach the floor, when will be things scheduled, so on and so forth. Can anyone name those two people? Yes. Yeah, so Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. She's a Democrat from California. She has part of the authority. There's one other person. That's perfect. Yeah? Close. Not minority leader. Majority leader. And this is a little tough. Does anyone know who the majority leader is now? So it's a Democrat. That's the Senate. Yeah? Sitting Hoyer. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So they have the power to move these things forward. The Senate, who has the power? We already mentioned this. He's from Kentucky. Perfect. The next step is debate. Again, we're still within the category of floor action. In the Senate, it's unlimited, but it begs these questions of filibuster and sort of cutting it off, the cloture. And in the House, it's much more limited. Because remember, there's 435 of them. Imagine if, like, we took all of you, like, doubled it, and then we're like, talk about the most controversial thing ever. You all would never stop. And believe it or not, in many ways, you all are much more mature than our current Congress. The last piece is the vote, which we talked about is generally majority rule with some narrow exceptions. Okay, are we done? It passed the House, it passed the Senate. No. Step 4, we got to figure out what's next. If the House and the Senate pass the same version of the bill, it goes to the President. You're like, I approve, right? If they pass different versions, it goes to the Conference Committee. All right, so let's go back to the example of what I think should be mandatory legislation. Puppy dogs for everyone, okay? What would be an example of an amazing, cute little puppers you could give to every U.S. citizen? What kind of dog? A beagle? Oh my God, that's such a good answer. Okay, so say the House Democrats are like, give everyone a beagle. A great policy. Whoever said that. What could the Senate Republicans say? What kind of puppers could they give?
Poodle.
A poodle? Okay, a good answer. Beagles are cute. Poodles are really cute too. I don't know. They're very different kinds of dogs. I like it though. So we have a split decision. They're like, we agree. We need to give cute little puppers that are fluffy and chase balls, like cuddle you, that are amazing to everyone. However, we disagree about the kind of dog. What will happen is the two bills will go to a conference committee. I know, it's like committees on committees on committees. Where senior members, like people who have been in the House and the Senate a long time, that have been appointed or sent there by the leadership of whichever committee initially saw the bill, will reach a compromise. So maybe they'll be like, no, let's get on the same page. We all love puppers. Okay? We like beagles, we like poodles, we need a middle ground. What's a middle ground solution of a dog that we could do? Breed them together, that would be some like, yes, only in America. I like that. We do that. Or you all could give the best dog, the objectively best dog, of which this is a fact, the Bernese Mountain Dog. Okay? Everyone gets a big, slobbery, cute Bernese Mountain Dog. Okay? Does that make a little bit of sense? Should we give everyone dogs? Wouldn't that be so sweet? Okay. Anyways. Step 5, the president. Step 5, the president. He has 4 options. 4 options. If the president's like, I like this, he can sign it, it becomes law. Boom, done. Second, if he likes it, but maybe doesn't want to be associated with it, or just like things are really busy, the president can not sign the bill. And if Congress is in session for a full 10 days during this period, the bill becomes law. Okay? It's just like, I'm not doing anything, I'm not signing it, but if Congress is in session, it becomes law. Third, he can pocket veto it. Pocket veto it. Have any of you ever been pocket vetoed by your parents or lab leaders? Can you give an example? Sort of, close. We're getting there. Yeah?
Like when I put in an anonymous question for the lab, and they just don't answer it.
We did pocket veto Baudrillard. That is true. Yes, exactly, right? So, if the president does not sign the bill, and Congress is not in session, so to get to this point of waiting to the end of the term, it is a pocket veto. The bill does not pass. Okay? The last thing the president can do, and this is like super, 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 super rare, and we'll talk about how it interacts with political capital in a little bit. He can veto it. Just be like, you banned. No, we're not doing this. Does the Congress have a recourse to that? A response to that? Yeah? 2/3 in both. So again, it's not choose your own adventure. It's not like, but the House really likes it. 2/3 in both in order to get things through. And that's sort of that last piece in the process of Congress's role in terms of responding to it. They also have a role of oversight and following up with the bills, and that's a whole other conversation.
So I just have a question about like the mechanics of pocket veto, because I'm very confused about like how the post practices, like the president has a certain amount of time to sign it.
Yep. Yeah, so one more time, the distinction is, in order for it to be, the shot clock is always 10 days, no matter what. If the president waits to sign the bill for 10 days, and Congress is not in session, the bill is vetoed. If the president waits 10 days and Congress is in session, then it is approved. Does that make sense? So there's like mechanisms for what happens after those 10 days depending on what's up with Congress. And you all can like go to the Congress's website. Wait there a second. Congress calendar. And you can see when they're in session and when they aren't. So like, I'm sure this one's out of date. But like here's the first one. Just as like an example, you can like sort of see when and which they're where. So yellow is, or blue I think is in session. You could go. Does that help? Cool. Yes?
So is one of them about line vetoes and like signing signatures and how those things play a role?
Great question. So, line item vetoes are, well, I'll start with signing statements, because signing statements are actually a little bit easier. So, there's a thing in constitutional law called a signing statement, which is the president will sign the bill. Trump's like, I am signing this. However, he's basically being like, or she, he's basically being like, but I disagree with this. Or, but I think that there is something constitutionally wrong with this. It's sort of the president's way of opposing the bill and setting up future fights in the court system without directly vetoing the legislation. So for instance, in last year's NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, President Trump issued signing statements, or hinted at signing statements, that parts of it were unconstitutional. It's all just political gesture. That being said, there are huge legal debates among like constitutional lawyers whether or not signing statements end the president's requirement to carry out that law. And in some ways, what teams will do is they'll make a circumvention argument. So saying that there's a way to prevent the plan from happening via signing statement. Does that make a little bit of sense? Okay. The line item veto is the idea that an executive, so a governor or a president, can take a bill and be like, I agree with all of this except for this one sentence. And just be like, we are crossing that sentence out. In 1998, the United States Supreme Court ruled presidential line item vetoes as unconstitutional. So Trump can't do that. But on a state level, there are some instances where it could occur, and it goes into the same dynamics of vetoes for political capital, which I'll unpack a little bit more when we get. Does that answer your questions? So those are two really, 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 really good questions. Yes? Okay, okay. This is all I have to say about the political process. I promise you're out of AP Gov now. If you tuned out and joined Golf and Jump or Tetris or something else, you come back to life. All right, we're good on the process. Checking. All right, cool. Let's move on. I want to transition to the second part of the lecture, which is to talk about the structure of the agenda. And again, if you're like, Thur, I've debated politics before, stay with me, because there are many, many different forms, and there are some different scenarios that I think will be helpful for you to ensure that you understand. There is not one politics DA. Like the debt ceiling DA is not emblematic, it's not representative, it's not a perfect example for all politics DAs. In fact, it is a very specific example of one. So don't be like, well, we talked about that in lab, so we're totally good. All right? We're going to talk about the agenda DA generally. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some specific examples of the debt ceiling. All right? Let's start with the core premise of the agenda DA, which is the notion of political capital. Political capital. I want to analogize or compare, or give a maybe easier example to start this conversation. Say you get home from the SDI in 2 to 4 weeks. You're like, Mom and Dad, it's so good to see you. It's wonderful, I'm excited. Say you're like, either I'm 16 or I'm about 16. You're like, I gotta get my parents to give me a car. Okay. Yeah? Raise your hand if you can drive yet. Keep your hands if you're a good driver. You are liars. Liars! Thankfully, you don't win these later. Okay, you all right. So all of you that kids are trying to teach your parents, those of you that kids are like, I'm about to. So you're trying to get. You're like, I said, oh, there's big camp. What's the point of big camp if I can't convince my parents to buy me a car? Right? Seriously. All right. Your parents are gonna love that guy. You're gonna go home and you're gonna be like, they told me to argue about all this stuff. And then we're gonna get phone calls. It's like, did you tell my kid to ask for a car? And I'm sure Carly's gonna be like, yes, Tyler 30. Here's his personal number. Okay. So that's our scenario. You're back home. You are asking your parents to buy you a car. Raise your hand and give me an example of either something you could do for them that would increase the probability of you getting a car, something you could say that would increase the probability of you getting a car, or some broader process that can increase the process of you getting a car. Carlos, right?
Yeah.
Fire away, man.
So if you say that you'll pay for half the car, you'll pay, or you'll buy the car, they'll pay the car.
Love it. Carlos is my negotiator in chief. He's like, let's talk through this. Let's find a compromise, right? I'm not saying it's an outrage thing. You don't need to buy me a full car. Just give me like $6 grand or something. I got this. Don't worry. All right, perfect. What else would you do? Go ahead. Okay, I'll get a job to help assist with the car. You know that's a very responsible, good answer. Let's be even a little lazier. Let's get our parents to. That's good. I like it. And that's a way of the same category, almost an olive branch, a trade, if you will. If you get me a car, quid pro quo, I will get a job. This is that I will get a job. Good one though. What else? Yes.
Promise to like drive your siblings.
Ooh, that's smart. But then you're stuck driving your siblings. Again, same compromise. Like your little brother or sister's gonna be in the car, like putting on some music that I would offer a reference. We would be like, Thur, that has not been cool in 5 years. / we do not know who they are. But yes, I like it. Again, leveraging. What else could we do? Yes. Ooh, that's smart. That's smart in the same sort of category. I like that. Okay, let's do one more thing. Yes.
Paint it as an advantage for them.
Yes. Again, persuasion. Being like, I'm so annoying. Like, you hate driving me to school. You hate taking me to the movies. What if like I just did that for you? Like, it'd be great. Okay. There's some other stuff too. Can anyone be kind of like nefarious? Like, can anyone think of a way that like you could put a little bit of pressure on your parents to get you a car? That would be a little hard. Yes.
I need it for school.
Okay, I like that. You could be like, if I don't have a car for school, I'm not going to be able to make it to school, and then I'm going to be living in your basement, and like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's get even more dastardly. Carlos, this is going to be good.
Alright, so wake up at 5:30 every morning, get ready and go, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. So
I
I
like
get
that.
to school, well,
Yeah.
see, I was late to school, I had an early lecture with Professor Thur, and I missed it because of you. I missed it.
Yeah, I love it. Carlos, oh my God, he's great. All right, one more. What's one more thing you could do? Ben, go ahead. Blackmailing, yes, that's what I was looking for. Give me an example. What does that look like? Oh, who has some creativity on this one? It's good. That's perfect though. I'm so horrified. Okay, go ahead.
You find out some terrible information about one of your parents and trying to release it to the other.
Sure. You're probably not getting Christmas gifts in this scenario, but I like it. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, that's perfect. Let's flip this, right? So we've thought of all these strategies to give it to our parents to this car. Let's go on the opposite side. What are some things that you would not want to do, or some things you would not want to say before trying to get your parents to buy you a car? Okay? Okay, yes.
You would not want to say, do not buy me a car.
That is correct. Yes, you would definitely not want to push against your own case. I like that. Yes, what else?
You would not want to say you're struggling in driver's ed.
Ooh, that is true, and something that in my case was very true as well. Parallel parking is really hard. Yes, perfect. Right? So again, both of those are lowering your persuasion. What else could you do? Yeah.
You wouldn't want to make another big investment.
Ooh, okay, this one's perfect. Say it one more time for everyone.
You wouldn't want to make another big request at the same time.
Right. So I don't want to go home and be like, Thur said that PCs are better than Macs. Mom and Dad, buy me a PC. Right? You are exhausting your influence. You wouldn't want to be like, take me to Disney World. I was away from you. You missed me. Etc. Etc. Okay. Let's do like 2 or 3 more. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to look bad. You don't want to like get in trouble. You don't want to get bad grades. So on and so forth. Okay, let's do like 1 or 2 more. Yes.
Maybe start with something you know they'll say no to make them more inclined to say yes to the car, like asking for your own house.
I like that. That's awesome. Or yeah. Or in okay, yeah, that's perfect. That's super smart. So okay. If you all have had me in lab before, you sort of know this. I like to rant about stuff that's like not even like related to what we're talking about. So like real quick aside, there's this really interesting concept in psychology called anchoring. That's exactly what that is. It's called anchoring and adjustment. And what it is you're like, I want you to give me $1 billion. And your parents are like, what? $1 billion? And then you're like, no, I'm just kidding. I just need $10. And they're more like, anyways, great answer. Or in the corollary, in the opposite way, for things we don't want to do, you wouldn't want to be like, Mom and Dad, can you buy me a video game? And then be like, just kidding, I want a car. Because that anchors the other way. Okay, last one. What's one more thing? Yeah, go ahead.
You don't want to lower your credibility, like
Yeah.
not going to act on promises and stuff ahead of time.
Perfect. You want to be. You want them to trust you. You want them to trust you. All of this is the hidden idea of political capital. Okay. All of the things you've said. Just replace you with the President of the United States and your parents with Congress. Okay? It's the exact same idea. It is the exact same idea. It is this idea that the president has a certain level of influence and sway and credibility and resiliency in what he or she asks for. That is finite, meaning it can be exhausted, it can be ended. And he or she needs to carefully balance what they are pursuing in order to achieve their signature priorities. All right? I have a picture up on the screen. Does anyone know? There's like a little caption underneath it, but I made it super small on purpose. Does anyone know what this is of, and maybe how it would relate to political capital?
The voters on the ACA that like became like.
Exactly, right? Just like if you run for TV in front of Will. Ooh, thumbs down. What happened is there was a super close vote. There was a huge Trump effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act, the signature health care law by the Obama administration. And all throughout the night, a variety of people within the president's office were pressuring McCain. They were encouraging McCain. They were trying to reason with McCain. They presumably were like probably trying to make some trades with McCain, like if you do this, we'll do this, to get him to repeal Obamacare. Specifically to repeal the individual mandate, the law that says you have to have health care as an individual. Okay? McCain, did he do this or this? He sort of did. He was like, no, I'm not doing it. So was it a successful or an unsuccessful example of political capital? Unsuccessful, right? Does anyone remember what was going on between Trump and McCain leading up to this moment, though, that maybe says something about political capital? Or maybe even more broadly, if you don't remember this exact moment in U.S. politics, how would you describe Trump and McCain's relationship?
Didn't Trump say that he captured like, oh no, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, so there was this huge fight in the run-up to the presidential election where Trump was like, John McCain's not a war hero. If he was a war hero, he wouldn't have been captured or whatever. Like, not good. Really bad. Right? If we're thinking back to our parents' example, how do you think that moment shaped Trump's and the Trump administration's political capital with McCain? Yeah. Yeah, like, it made it not credible. Yeah, it's like, you are not a good faith negotiator, you don't have my best interest in mind, you do not respect me, so on and so forth. So it's an instance where that credibility and perception and influence really, really matters. There's a variety of ways in which political capital can exert itself. Again, this one cut off for some reason. It's over on this side, I'll make sure to post it. It can involve coercion or pressure. So being like, you better vote for my bill, or I will ensure that the Republican National Committee does not give you fundraising dollars for your reelection campaign. Remember, that matters a lot in the House. The House gets reelected every 2 years. It could be, hey, I'm Nancy Pelosi. I've been here for a really long time in the House. I control who goes on what committees. I control when bills get to the floor. Ilhan, Omar, I want you to follow my policies closer if you are going to make a name. Okay, it's that threat of force. It's almost like deterrence if you talk about that in base. The total opposite of that is the idea of friendship, or the idea of olive branches. Olive branches are just like a peace offering. It's like a nice, like, oh, we're on the same team here, we got this, right? So maybe instead of being like the quid pro quo threat, maybe it's like a quid pro quo offer, which also bleeds into the third thing, which is bargaining or horse trading. And being like, okay, Thur, I know you really want to give Bernice Mountain Dogs to everyone. We can't, they're too big. Like, some people can't handle that. How about if you agree with me to get poodles? They're cute, they're cuddly. In the future, I will sponsor a bill to create more dog parks in your hometown. Okay? I would take that. The last two things they can involve what debaters are really good at, which is convincing people and persuasion and using logical appeals. One really unique thing that the president has is called the bully pulpit. The bully pulpit. Bully as in like streetcar bully. Pulpit as in pulpit. P-U-L-P-I-T. It references it like churches, how there's like that big lectern, that big thing you speak from, and the entire audience has your attention. I have a small, and sometimes distracted by dolphin jump, bully pulpit here, right? I have your attention, and I can persuade you about the politics in a variety of ways. Okay, so let's bring it all together. And again, I know that this is a little repetitive for some folks, but stick with me for this, and I promise you that we will get a little bit more advanced after a break. So there's 4 parts of any given dissad. Uniqueness argument, which is like, where are things at right now? The link argument, which is like, how does the plan impact that? The internal link, which connects the law itself, or the plan itself, the effect of the plan, and the consequence. And the impact, which is just like why that thing matters. Okay? For any politics to get, the uniqueness argument will talk about what's up with the bill right now, what's going on with things. The link will be about the plan's effect on the bill. Generally, for this first category of disadvantage we're talking about, the plan's effect on Trump's political capital. It's popular, it's unpopular, it causes distraction, it causes fights, so on and so forth. The internal link is the effect of political capital on the bill. And the impact is whether the bill is a good thing or a bad thing. Let's talk through 2 classic examples, okay? There's the Trump good dissad and the Trump bad dissad. These do not refer to the desirability of President Trump. They refer, not President Trump, that's not words. That's like Kofi. It refers to the desirability of the president's agenda, like that specific bill, okay? So a Trump good dissad, for instance, the USMCA dissad, which Michigan put out, would say that the USMCA, which is a trade agreement between the US, Mexico, and Canada to replace the North American Free Trade Agreement, is good. And a Trump bad dissad would say some action that Trump is going to do is a bad thing. Okay. Let's walk through the Trump good dissad, and then we'll do an example as a whole. Uniqueness says this bill will pass now. We're going to get a new agreement for the USMCA. The link is that the plan is unpopular. Ending arms sales causes backlash from the defense lobby, as Matt Nagy explained in the opening lecture. That hurts political capital. The internal link is that if Trump does not have political capital, he cannot get this deal done. And the impact of that is that would be bad. That would be bad. And the reason it would be bad is because the USMCA agreement is a good thing. It allows free trade, it increases agriculture exports, so on and so forth. Okay? Let's do a totally different example. Imagine that I am the president. It is President Thur. Yes, you all voted for me. 100% turnout. 100% for Thur. It was great. And let's say I have a new bill. I have a bill to dissolve the University of Michigan. Right? We'll call this a third good bill for now. What would be the uniqueness argument for my third good politics DA? What's my uniqueness argument? What's the state of affairs now?
That the bill will get passed, the Michigan State will be dissolved.
No, I'm Michigan. Michigan. We are the university. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Uniqueness, Thur's like super corrupt and the University of Michigan bill will pass. Okay, what's the link? Say it's an arms sales act. Yeah. Okay, close. Let's break it up even a little bit more. Yes. Yeah, it's like I was so credible, I'm no longer so credible. What's our internal link? Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't have the credibility, like the political capital, you can't dissolve Michigan.
Yeah, I can't beat the Michigan coalition in Congress. And what's the impact? Why would it be good for the University of Michigan to dissolve? I can't actually imagine a reason, but yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay. Ooh, we're getting super creative. For my football fans, Jim Harbaugh has to go back to the NFL. It makes the Cleveland Browns super good. The Cleveland Browns should win a championship. Perfect, right? Or you do something like else. You could be like, and if here's a good one. If the University of Michigan dissolves, it makes Thur super happy. President Thur was going to launch a diversionary war, but if Thur value to life is high, there will be no conflict, right? Policy debate always gets to be cool. Okay. The other one, let's do Trump bad, or Thur bad in this instance. A bad policy that Thur could have. Does anyone have any examples of a bad policy I could offer? I'm a little scared. Go ahead.
Taking away puppies from them.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll do it. So Thur has a banned puppies bill. No more puppies ever. Okay? Oh my God, my heart hurts. What's our uniqueness argument? Yes.
The plan is going to pass.
Oh, back it up real quick. Back it up. The puppy. I think you said plan. My bad.
Actually, wait.
So this gets a little tough. So in this case,
Actually, that plan is not going to pass.
you got it. There you go. Right? It's weird, right? Third bad. It all flips. So before we're saying the bill will pass. Now it's won't pass. Thur will not get to ban puppies. Right? Because remember, we're saying it's good to not do that. Okay, what's our link? Thur will not have the political capital to do a puppy ban now. What's our link? How does the plan affect my political capital?
The plan would make you more popular and give you the political capital to ban puppies.
Perfect. And if the internal link, if I have political capital, what can I do? Perfect. And come on, do I even have to say this? Why would it be bad to ban puppies? Puppies cute. Puppies key to value to life. Puppies key to head. I don't know. Puppies key to mental health. Yeah, right. Perfect. Okay. Here's the one important thing. In order to right one of these disadvantages, the current president has to support the bill in question. Right? Because the argument you're making, and this is the reason why the debt TA is not in this category. Trump does not support the debt framework. The president has to support the bill. The president has to be fighting for that bill because you're making the argument that his or her political capital is what is key to get the bill done. Does that make sense? So, like, could we read a Trump goodness ad that's like, House Democrats have talked about protecting dreamers, protecting undocumented immigrants. Could that be our politics diss ad? No, right? Because it would be like, why would President Trump use his political capital and influence to protect? Sorry. I'm just so shocked by the premise. Why would President Trump use his credibility to protect undocumented immigrants? He wouldn't. Could we have a diss ad that's like, Trump will pursue Space Force now that needs political capital? Yeah, for sure. He supports Space Force. He could, in theory, use his political capital to militarize space. Okay. Does this general blueprint make sense? Question, yes, please.
Okay, so like, what if Congress, like, previously said, like, after 10 days decides to overturn what Trump's decision was?
For the plan or for the policy? The plan? So that's a really good question. So what affirmative teams would say is that, and I suppose negative teams too would say, is that affirmatives have to defend that the plan happens. So what that would mean is that the plan would fiat, they would imagine, they would make up, they would say that this should happen, that there is a 2/3 majority in each part of Congress that get the plan done. Now, that's a really, really good question because that might hurt Trump's political capital, and I'll talk about why in a second. And it might be a new link, but in general, we always want to debate should the plan be done, not would the plan be done. Because otherwise, like, in truth, Congress is never going to be able to prevent Trump from selling arms to Saudi Arabia. But we want to be able to debate would that be a good idea or not. Does that answer the question? Does it cause a new question?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Do you want to ask it or?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like,
Yeah, no, this is great.
so, you're saying that that would only happen, like, if we say that the president would do it, or it has happened already. But if we're debating that it should happen, why are we saying that it already happened?
Yeah, so the reason why is for whatever reason, debaters want to focus, the community as a whole wants to focus on the substance of is the plan a good idea or a bad idea, as opposed to the process of is this a likely way of producing policy. That's sort of just a norm that has emerged. Personally, I love debating like the intricacies of the process, but for a variety of strategic reasons, we sort of just agree like we're going to talk about is this a good idea or bad. But yeah, you're asking a really good question. Okay, yes.
For the Trump bad idea, right? Could you, instead of like when like a certain bill being passed now, could you say that a certain policy is like strong now, but it could be political capital and like maybe another legislation to override that, or is that?
I'm not sure I totally understand. Would you say it one more time?
Okay, so for a Trump bad idea, could instead of saying like a certain bill being passed right now, could you say that a certain policy is like strong now, and that like linked if the plan is popular, just Trump's political capital, we would have a political capital to like push for a bill that overrides that given to legislation.
Oh yeah, you could, but that's still saying the bill won't pass right now. Because what you're saying is right now the bill will pass, then, well, see, actually, let me think of that. You probably wouldn't have that scenario, because if Trump's vetoing the bill, then Trump would not be using his political capital to support that bill. Does that make sense? Like, you would never be like, Trump's PC is key to overcome a veto, because that would be, like, if Trump's vetoing it, he hates the bill. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about two more things, then we're going to take a break. Is a break needed a little bit? Stretch a little bit? All right. Stick with me for these last two things, and then I'll give you 10 minutes. You can go to Smarties, you can get a healthy dose of water and like an apple or banana, or you can do what I expect you to do and get like soda. Okay. What we have described, there are 4 possible internal links to the politics debate. What we have talked about so far is the idea of winners lose. Winners lose. All of these like winners and losers things does not refer to people, it refers to the effect of the plan. Okay, here's what winners lose says. If the president pushes for a policy and gets it done, okay? If the president pushes for the policy and gets it done, it will cost him political capital. If he wins on what he's pushing, he will lose political capital. And the idea for it is that political capital is finite. There's only so much of it. And this goes to the example that was given in the back. I forgot who said it, I'm really sorry. But it was like the best example in the world of if you're trying to ask your parents for a new car, you're not going to also ask them for something else. Okay? This happened IRL. President Obama exerted a ton of effort to get health care done. The ACA. Like he fought for like months. It was his #1 priority. He got it done, and a lot of people say he lost his credibility, he lost his influence, he lost his ability to extract concessions, such that he was unable to pass a cap-and-trade bill, a bill that would regulate greenhouse gas emissions. Okay? I think it is extremely rare that you will see a winners-lose dissat on this topic. Why is it extremely rare for you to see a winners-lose dissat on this topic? Yeah?
Putting ourselves in a plan.
Yeah, and perhaps even, it's not necessarily about the reaction to the plan, it's about would the president push this in the first place, right? Trump would never be the one who's advocating and pushing for the plan. He has explicitly been like, I want to sell arms to Saudi Arabia. He is trying, for those of you who are at Afterlab, Trump is currently trying to sell nuclear capabilities to Saudi Arabia without a 1, 2, 3 agreement. Okay? So you're probably not going to see this. But it's possible. It's possible. I want you to know about it because it exists on other topics. Okay, this one you will for sure see. This link is relevant to this topic. It is called Losers Lose. Losers Lose. And it says, it's a little weird. Stay with me. It says if a president fights against something, tries to oppose something, tries to resist something, and fails, he will lose political power. He will lose influence. All right? I know it's weird. So imagine this scenario. Imagine this scenario. Plan. Stop selling arms to Taiwan. Don't sell fighter jets. That would be bad. What is Trump's reaction? Like in the real world, what is Trump saying to that? No, like absolutely not. That's an infringement of my authority. It's bad. I don't like it. You're not doing this. Okay? That is the most likely reaction. But remember this conversation we just had, this really good conversation. Just because Trump opposes it, maybe even vetoes it, does the plan get done? Yes. Yeah. We assume that we want to imagine the should the plan be done, not the would the plan be done. So, here's what happens. Plan is proposed. Congress passes it. It restricts arms sales to Taiwan. Trump vetoes that. He's fighting against it. He's trying to prevent it from getting done. And then, 2/3 of each House, Senate, and the House, repass the plan and beat Trump. Trump looks like a loser. Right? He fought for something and failed. Right? It shows he's not to be feared. It shows he doesn't have influence, and it could spill over to other issues. The example I gave is with Obama and Merrick Garland, who was a Supreme Court nominee. Obama tried to get him nominated, failed for a lot of political reasons, and it could be argued that that was sort of the end of any legislative productivity from the Obama administration. Though, to be totally fair to the Obama administration, when there was a massive influx of Tea Party members of Congress in 2010, and GOP became the party of no, their terms not mine, it was really difficult to get anything done in the first place. Does that thesis make a little bit of sense? Losers lose. It's the idea that Trump is fighting the plan, but it still gets done and makes him look good. All right? The opposite of that is winners win. Winners win. So losers lose and winners win make the same argument. These two things go together. Okay? But winners win is an affirmative turn, it's a link turn or an interlink turn to winners lose. What winners win says is that political capital is not finite. It's replenishable. It can be built. Okay? So in the car example, it would be like, you convinced your parents to buy you an Xbox, and they're like, wow, my child learned so much at the Smart Debate Institute. They're so smart, and I'm terrified of their negotiating ability. I'm going to buy them a car. Okay? And the example with this, that some people argue, is the steps that led up to the Affordable Care Act. Obama got other smaller legislation done that perhaps then allowed him to negotiate better with the Affordable Care Act and get that. Okay, the last one is like total nonsense. I've never seen it in my entire life, but I would feel weird if I didn't mention it. There is also an internal link called the loser's win theory of political capital. Does anyone have a guess of what the loser's win theory of political capital says? Yes?
Is it like when the president has against the bill, it's passed, then the bill?
Yes. Yes. Can anyone give me a reason like why? Why would that be the case? Yeah.
Because the thing he was fighting against was probably worse. Like it was like, so say it was inhumane.
Sure.
The president was fighting against it.
Yeah.
And it ended up getting passed. He still put up a fight against it.
Sure.
And he gained, political
So maybe it's like, oh, it's like a noble fight. You tried really hard. Sure, that could be one. What else? Yeah.
Kind of like the writer from illustrating is that even if it gets passed, the president then gets to do something that he wants later, things change.
It's a little different. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah?
I can also say like, taking a shot, like right now the Green Deal passed, the GOP would like try to, what's happening now.
Sure. I think the other one, the other explanation is like kind of silly. It's also just like, oh, we feel bad for you. Like you tried. You worked so hard. I don't think you'll see it. But I bet someone will cut it as an answer to losers lose. Like I bet someone will be like, Trump gains political capital from trying and failing. The world is weird. Okay, last thing before the break, I will go through these super quick. There are some other DAs that are politics DAs, but are not about political capital. The debt DA is not about political capital, right? It is about agenda crowd out and focus. Meaning, the argument is we have just enough time to get this thing done. But if we inject a new fight, or if we have a new distraction, we will no longer be able to deal with this. I think there are two affirmative answers to this category of argument that are best. One is something that's called a thumper. A thumper. Does anyone know what a thumper is? Thumper. It's a really weird name. Yes. Yeah, so it's saying the link is not unique. So MSU, Will Refko, like created the idea of a thumper in debate. Northwestern kind of wanted to troll us a little bit. There's a little bit of a rivalry, if you will. And they wanted to like give it a new silly name. And they named it the Pluto. Because they were like, it'll be funny to call it Pluto. And what Pluto stands for is predictive link uniqueness takeout. It checks out. They go to Northwestern. Pluto, right? So what it does is it says there's some other thing that will complicate and cause fights in Congress now. And it can either be specific to arms sales, or it can be general. Like there can be investigations of Trump. And the reason why that's so good against the agenda crowd out DA is generally the link cards are like any fight will cause this problem. And the thing you want to pair with thumpers is link defense. To be like, no. This thing, the plan, is a small drop in the bucket. These other fights that are coming are a way bigger deal that we should be much more worried about, and there will be an even bigger distraction. Okay? The second kind of disad is about bipartisanship, and it's less about Trump, it's more about Congress. It's like, if there is a congenial, a friendly, a nice atmosphere in Congress where things are like working together, then a bill will get done, but if new fights are injected like the plan, it will prevent that spirit of cooperation and friendship. As the F answer, I wrote bipartisanship. Why did I do that? Yes?
Bipartisanship is really not happening right now.
Yeah.
Completely, like,
Yes.
economics is
There are a million examples, but if you'd like, just go to Google News. You will see constant fights between the White House and the Democratic House. You will see constant fights between the Democratic House and the Republican Senate. And frankly, you will see fights between the Democrats and between the Republicans. One finding of political science is that the world has become increasingly polarized, meaning there's greater divide between the left and the right, and bipartisanship has sort of gone out with that trend. The last type of arguments, and if you ever created like Rubber Stout Titans, you're already familiar with this, there's a rider bill, which says some bad bill will be attached onto the plan as an amendment. Because the plan is must-pass legislation. Remember this thing said about fiat. It has to get done. And the plan brings with it some bad stuff. So like, in the past, like Taiwan arms sales really enough have been a rider. We wrote this one about the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. It won some debates, right, Evan? Yeah, it did. Don't shake your head now. Fair enough. The rider VA is not great. There's three things that the affirmative should go for. One, other things are deemed must-pass legislation. Any appropriations bills, so like things to fund the government, are generally must-pass. Two, no one knows the plan is must-pass, right? Like, it is true. The plan is must-pass. The plan has to be done for debate reasons. But, like, does Chuck Schumer know that high schoolers, debaters think that fiat is a thing? He does not. No. He doesn't. Kind of cool. A little weird. Cool. And the last argument is a theory argument that says we should focus on whether the plan is a good idea or a bad idea, not the political process. All right. It is 11:15. You all done awesome. I've loved this participation. I'm going to give you a 10-minute break. Hold on, real quick before you go. 10-minute break.